When Batman the Animated Series first aired in 1992 under Warner Brothers, it immediately became an international sensation and reinvigorated the entire Batman franchise in comics for the first time arguably in decades, and made countless loyal fans due to the extraordinarily well animation, voice acting, screenplay, and sheer funding poured into the cartoon. Disney saw the success that DC Comics and Warner Brothers were having with the cartoon and soon thought of coming up with their own equally dark, complex, and memorable cartoon series. Their answer to this was Gargoyles, which first aired in the United States of America in 1994. 2 years after the start of Batman's broadcasting within America. But the equally dark nature of Gargoyles meant that Disney soon achieved success with the series as well. Observing the success that DC had, they soon did similar strategies in expanding the franchise, in carefully widening the Gargoyles universe outside the cartoon series, and it became a serious franchise in the 1990s, with a video game adaptation designed comic book line from Marvel Comics, which did not really connect to the cartoon universe but was mostly used for promotions and other related merchandise such as toys. The entire overall concept of the series proved to be very original and appealed to both younger children as well as older viewers who all happened to be watching the television show, and both demographics found the cartoon interesting and captivating. It's been said that out of sheer originality, that Gargoyles was arguably the best cartoon produced out of the entire decade of the 1990s for Disney. Even with all of the praise and respect for it, there were those who did not necessarily think too highly of it. Bruce Timm, one of the main creators of the DC animated universe of the early 1990s to mid-2000s, called the Gargoyles universe and franchise quote-unquote Celtic fantasy crap in a 1999 interview. It was even considered to put a world based on the television series into one of the early Kingdom Hearts games by Disney and Square, but the idea was later abandoned. The characters of Gargoyles were also highly enriched in lore, real-life history, and interaction within the series with one another. Taking aspects once again from Batman, the interaction and death of each and every character to one another in their environment were to the point that some fans felt for the characters because they had been explained so carefully, and often provoked thought among watchers as to what would happen next when watching episodes for particular characters. To immediately show viewers how in-depth and graphic the series would be, the pilot arc, Awakening, were a staggering 5 episodes. Normally, a pilot arc for an introduction to a cartoon or even sitcom would be a single episode or 2, but the writers with Gargoyles wanted viewers to know that it could easily match Batman the Animated Series in many ways. The content also had to be just as dark, intense, and mature as the Batman cartoon was. Gargoyles immediately did this in the first season with the now iconic episode Deadly Force, which was the 8th episode in the first season. Broadway visits Eliza in her apartment after having recently seen an American Western gunslinger movie. She just finished her shift off the police force and was cooking some food for him. Her gun was out of her holster and in plain sight on a table when Broadway happened to see it. Naturally, picking it up and playing with it, he imitates the movie, but he accidentally shoots her. In the original airing of the episode, a scene showed Eliza on the floor with blood around her torso, but in later versions the blood was actually edited out. Broadway takes her to the hospital and, not knowing what to do, frames another minor villain for the crime, and all of the Gargoyles seek vengeance for her attempted murder. However, the villain isn't the one who did the crime, and Broadway later confesses and Eliza forgives him. It's an extremely powerful and well-written episode that deals with violence and its unforeseen consequences. It might have been done too well, because What happened in that episode was never referred to again in the entire series, due in part to its graphic and groundbreaking content. Gargoyles was not just known for finely executed storylines or putting forth controversial topics within episodes. One of the main characters, Demona, was often seen as one of the first real female characters that is now considered feminist, as she often had her own reasons for being one of the main villains of the series and not obeying any man. Mostly it had to do with the main storyline of the cartoon from the first and second seasons. Some of the few criticisms of her came from, at the time, commentators considering her to be hypersexualized. But the criticism did not last long, as once again, it was all part of the character's identity within the cartoon. Even though Gargoyles slowly gained a devoted following during its original broadcast time and became a popular cartoon, Disney executives decided to abruptly cancel the series. In terms of television decisions by and for Disney, it's now considered to be one of their worst decisions related to cartoons in the 1990s, or even in modern times. Gargoyles was aired from 1994 to mid-1996. Another American broadcasting channel, ABC, which is American Broadcasting Channel, picked up the rights from Disney and continued the series immediately. There were no halts in episode productions, but the conditions were, later on, viewers noticed that the writers who had done brilliant work on the first and second seasons were not brought back onto this new third season with new developmental executives from ABC. ABC renamed this third season of Gargoyles, the Goliath Chronicles. Their third season only got 13 episodes, and originally viewers were neutral about the treatment of the series from its original creators. And eventually, fan and viewer reception had negative views from watching this season. There were claims of criticism from viewers of the series mentioning that the changes in storyline as well as gargoyle personality traits during the season were vastly different from the established character traits and story themes of the first and second seasons. The Goliath Chronicles were not renewed for a fourth season, and once it was cancelled, fans were left wanting more than what the season had given. And plenty of fan speculation and theories were mentioned and passed along the internet. Some have even said that there should not have even been a third season at all, and it should have just ended with the second season. 10 years later, in 2006, a comic book line backed by some of the key individuals from the original 2 seasons was released. Fan reactions were generally positive to it, and that it finally officially negated the Goliath Chronicles from continuity relating to the Gargoyles timeline and mythos. It continued right where the season 2 final arc, Hunter's Moon, ended. Despite the fact that the comic only ran for 12 issues from years 2006 through 2009. Details and facts later emerged that even though the comic book sales were decent, Disney was increasing its licensing fees to use its characters and Gargoyles being under the Disney name. The comic book publisher releasing Gargoyle comics did not renew its license, which ended in mid-2008. Plans were that if the comics had continued, there would have been 2 arcs called Gargoyles Pendragon and Gargoyles Time Dancer, references to the first and second seasons of the cartoon. Each of these series would have been a limited 6-issue run. Fans who were old enough to remember the original cartoon were happy to at least see some of the creative forces behind the show attempt to fix mistakes by ABC during the Goliath Chronicles. To see Gargoyles revived in a future animated series, new comic books, or even film is not exactly out of the question or realm of speculation. Much like other Disney properties that lie dormant, all that's needed is inspiration and a group of individuals to revive it, and if done properly and correctly, it can be very easy to expand further than the original 2 seasons of the cartoon and comics from the mid-2010s. Speculation and plans for a revival of the concept of gargoyles have been discussed at various times since the cancellation of the show's 2nd season. But since so much time has passed from when the original cartoon ended and the negation of the Goliath Chronicles in the 2010s, if something new is done with the Gargoyles franchise, then it would more than likely be a full reboot or possible reimagining of the series, with the original 2 seasons and possible comics relating to the cartoons done as a universe that can be retold, with the subject material being the backbone of that universe. And even if the new adaptation is possibly successful, it can be further expanded upon the original ideas. Such would be fitting for one of the greatest cartoons, or possibly, as some have said, the greatest single cartoon that Disney produced from the 1990s.